Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Determining whether the health and wellness of return to office RTO workers are better than that of hybrid or remote workers can be complex and may depend on various factors. The health and wellness outcomes can differ from one organization to another and may change over time. Hello and welcome to another episode of Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host Dipshi, and today I have with me the CEO of Pons Health Sciences University and the co-founder of Tiber Health, Dr. David Lenihan. David is driven by a relentless commitment to making medical education more accessible for students of all backgrounds and income levels. An experienced entrepreneur, educator, and medical practitioner, he has witnessed firsthand the limitations of the traditional medical school model and resolved to create a better, more inclusive, and more effective one. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi, Disha. Appreciate it.
We are so glad to have you here, David. So before delving into today's topic, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us about your wellness journey?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Dave Lenihan. I'm the CEO of Tiber Health, which is a parent company that concentrates on how to educate healthcare workers, typically from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, to go into communities and help.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing about you. So today's topic, so let us begin with that.
Yeah.
So, according to you, are RTO workers generally healthier than hybrid or remote workers?
Yeah, this is really kind of a tough question because you want to answer it definitively. And I think if we look at the Society for Human Resource Management, they kind of did a big study after COVID on this. And what they found is there was a difference between the remote and hybrid worker to those that are in the office. And it's not huge, but they found that about 40% of the remote and 38% of the hybrid workers had an increased level of anxiety and depression when compared with in-office workers, which was about 35%. And I think when you look at that, even though it's a small difference, I think you need to get into the details of why. And one of the things they said in this paper is that when you work from home or in a hybrid situation, that you're interrupted a little bit more. Maybe you don't have the greatest internet connection, and they focused their paper on that, but I really think they missed the point. And I believe that the reason why that there's an increased level of anxiety or depression in that type of worker is because they lose that networking skill, that interaction with your coworker, with your boss. And so you know where you sit in that quality of work realm and whether or not you're going to get a promotion or you're going to get a bonus or you're doing a good job. If you don't have that internal network infrastructure, it makes you more anxious and leads to depression. And that's why I think when you read these papers, that's what's occurring. That's what's underlying this mechanism.
Even I believe when we are working remotely, so we, like you said, the networking skills reduce after a point of time, right? Also, we are working from our home offices or wherever we are working from. So it also leads to isolation as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. That in itself is that creates the anxiety, that not knowing where you're at with your coworkers, with your boss, with your customers. That remoteness leads to that anxiety, and so that I do believe that leads to some of this unwellness that we're reading about in the literature now.
Like, are there differences in terms of physical fitness and activity levels between these two groups?
So I just kind of look at myself on this when I'm trying to answer this. If I have a bunch of free time, and I'm not saying when you work from home you have more free time, but you have more flexibility maybe in your time, I tend to not do the things. But when I'm at the office, I make sure that from 6 to 6:45 every day, I work out. I get exercise. So I ensure that I build that into my schedule. I find that if your time is a lot more fungible, you have a lot more flexibility in the time, you don't schedule those necessary things that you need to do to take care of yourself, like exercise. So I understand that people will say, well, if you're at home, you can go exercise whenever you want. But I just don't think people actually do that in practice. I know in theory it will work, but in practice, I don't think that occurs.
Yes, and I believe one of the biggest factors is routine, right? So when we are working from home, we tend to become a little lazier than
Right.
when we are going to office. So when we are going to office, there is a time frame, right? From 9 to 5 or wherever, whenever. So we are working from this to this. And then after that, the rest of the things which we have to do, we do that. But when we are working from home, our days go slow, we are just doing anything and everything, the like routine just messes up, right?
And I would just add a little bit more. When you're kind of at home and you don't have a structure, you always think you got time to go do something.
Exactly.
But when you're kind of in a more structured environment, when you're done with it, then that time is yours. So when you're done with your work or you're done with what you have to do, then all the rest of the time is yours personally, and you get to do with that what you will. Where if it's, you're not structured, you kind of erode that personal time even more.
Yes, the activity levels also tend to grow or go up when you are working from office, right?
Yep, I agree. That's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, so let's talk about mental health challenges like such as stress, anxiety, or burnout. Is there a disparity in these challenges between RTO, hybrid, and remote workers?
Yeah, so like I said in the initial part, we see more anxiety and depression or mental health issues in people that work from home or in a hybrid environment. But again, I think we missed the point. And it's like most things in life, you have to have a balance. There are times when you might have to work from home or you might have to do a hybrid. And there are times when you have to return to the office and work. What I would recommend managers do is, look, you have to come back to the office. We have to see your face. But you can balance that with some hybrid, with some remote work into the schedule. So what I would recommend managers to do is don't be so draconian. We're coming out of this COVID phase where people are learning how to adapt to a new environment. Balance it. Maybe give an employee 2 days a week or 2 days a month, or where you figure it out, where you could work from home or you could do some hybrid type of work. Because really, at the end of the day, all that the manager cares about is that the work gets done and that quality of work gets incorporated into the business environment. That doesn't always have to be done at the office. So I think what you could do is, to help improve mental health, you could try to balance out those three methods so that you could create an environment that works best for your employee.
Yeah, so there should be some flexibility.
Yeah.
So, for example, when a worker is going through some issues, so he or she should have the flexibility to work from home probably once or twice a month, right? So, exactly. And in terms of job satisfaction and work related stress, do you think people working from office go through these issues more than the ones working from home?
I think this is going to be a bit contrary to maybe the public perception or social media, but I think job satisfaction is better when you're in the office. That interaction with your coworker, and I'm seeing this in my business. We're not huge; we have 1,000 employees, so I'm kind of big, but not massive. I see that when they're in the cafeteria talking, or when they're meeting with their supervisors, or they're even meeting with clients, or I'm an education institution with students, when they're doing it via Zoom, when the call's done, you're done, and off we go and do something else. But when you're in the work environment, you're expanding on that knowledge base. You're talking to your coworkers, your colleagues, and that also helps build a relationship. And I think that makes for a happier life than just sitting at home. And so I think that element that element of working, coming into an office, having a structure, having a routine, helps the human. I think it's a human nature thing. And that's why I'm actually an advocate for returning to the office.
And do you think sometimes there also arises trust issues in managers or the leaders in terms of the work done by the employee? So when a person is working from home, do you think sometimes the managers do not trust the employees whether they're actually working from home productively or not?
I will tell you, Disha, that is exactly the heart of the problem. and I'm talking about myself here, so I'm not going to talk about any other CEOs out there. If I don't see the employee, if I don't know who you are as a person, even if you do good quality work, and I like the reports you give me and things like that, but if I don't know who you are, I'm most likely not going to promote you. I'm not going to give you that trust to give you that next position. And I think that's what's driving all this anxiety among the remote workers and the hybrid workers, is because they know deep down that probably their boss doesn't trust them because they just don't know. And that reduces their ability to move up the corporate ladder to get the next job. Now, right now in the world, people that are employees have the upper hand. There's a shortage of labor, and so they can kind of command this. But that's going to change. And soon, you know, there's going to be an oversupply of employees. And it's going to be those who are in the workforce, those who the bosses know, who the supervisors trust, that are going to be keeping their jobs and moving up that ladder and enjoying the economic benefits that come from it. So I think that is the heart. The question you asked about the trust is the heart of this whole discussion.
And what about work-life balance? Do you think the RTO workers struggle more with maintaining a healthy work-life balance compared to hybrid or remote workers?
I think just the opposite. I think that the person that goes into the office, and it doesn't have to be every day, but the person who has more structure is the person that's going to have a better work-life balance. And that typically, and this isn't for everybody, I understand there's some people that work from home that might experience this, but typically the average worker, when they have a structure and they have to come in the office, let's say from 10 to 6 or 9 to 5 or whatever their hours happen to be, when they have that structure, when they leave, that time when they're gone is their own time. And because of that, they're able to balance that work-life structure better. And that makes them a happier person. And I just know myself during the COVID, when everything was locked down and I had to do all the Zoom meetings and work from home, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was an effective way to do it. Now we've learned to use these technologies to help us. So we can do this webcast. We can do things like this. That's great. But at the end of the day, you still need to know who your coworker is by name. You need to know what they look like. Maybe even know what their kids look like, because that's what's going to help improve the outcome of what you do as an employee. And when you do that, that makes you proud of what you do. That also helps your work-life balance.
Yes. And how does the health and wellness of RTO workers affect their productivity and job performance compared to remote workers?
Well, we know that Walmart and Disney now and Amazon are requiring people to come back to work. I think when you start seeing these large companies do this, and let's take the hypothesis, if remote work was better and produced a better quality, these large companies would let people stay out, because really what they want is improved productivity. I think what you're seeing is that when the person's working from home, productivity is not there. And so they need that productivity to happen. So they're bringing people back into the office. I think that's what you're seeing. We tried this experiment during COVID that people could work from home, and there was a lot of hype about it. But I think the results, now that we're out of it, and the results we're seeing aren't as good as we thought. And that's why we're starting to require people to come back to the office, because we need that productivity to increase again.
And yes, sometimes what happens in office setting, the productivity, the mind also works in that way, right? So when we're working from our couch, our minds also function in a similar way, a little slow, probably sometimes, thinking that we are in the home environment. But when we're at work, working in our chairs and working on our office desk, so our mind is also more active and aware that we are working from the office, and as a result, we work efficiently. Do you think that?
Yeah. And I don't know if you did this. I'm just going to make fun of myself. But when I'm at home working, I'm on my computer, and off on the other side of the room, I got the TV on with the Real Housewives, one of those, those shows. Now I might have the volume muted, but it's there and it catches your attention. You get distracted by it, right? And so instead of working, I'm watching Lisa Vanderpump on Vanderpump Rules or something. That's not a good work environment. When I'm here in the desk at my office, I don't have that. So I don't have those distractions that happen. And I know people are going to say, well, I don't have my TV on. But there are other distractions that happen when you're at home that don't occur when you're at the office.
Yes.
And distractions that happen at the office tend to be work related and not personal.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we are almost at the end of the session. So last but not the least, what role do company policies and wellness programs play in influencing the health and wellness of these worker categories?
So I think the key with writing policies is that you want your workers to be as healthy as possible with respect to physicality and mental health. And in order to do that, you need to write policies that have the opportunity for a manager or a supervisor to be flexible at times. So what I would recommend people do if they're in this position to write policy is say, all right, we're going to require return to the office. We're going to require you to come back to the office. But there will be some flexibility where you could have 1 day every 2 weeks or 5 days a month where you could do a hybrid or work from home. And providing that balance, I think, is how you actually improve the wellness of your employee and also helps you retain your work talent because they're going to like being able to do that.
Yes, I believe along with the employees, the employers should also be very conscious and concerned about maintaining the work-life balance of the employees as well, right?
Yep, I agree. 100%.
So they should also provide that kind of a work environment where employees also feel flexible and they can lead healthy lifestyles, right?
I think that's exactly what I would end with this is say, but you still need to return to the office. You can be flexible, but you have to bring your employees back to the office. I think it's very important for humanity to do that.
Exactly. Okay, David, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. It was a great session. I really learned a lot talking to you about these issues. I hope you also had a good time talking to me.
Yeah, Dipshi, I had a great time chatting. I love these topics, so it's always fun to give your opinion on them.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a good day ahead.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.